Speak softly and carry a big stick. That was US President Theodore Roosevelt's adage to stake out Washington's turf in the Americas. More than a century on, it's being evoked by some after an upset win in Argentina's midterm elections by a close ally of the current occupant of the White House. Only Donald Trump didn't speak softly. He bluntly warned that rejection of the party of far-right libertarian Javier Milei would imperil Washington's $20 billion lifeline for a peso that's teetering, a lifeline announced just last week. We'll ask about Milei's win, his bid to dismantle the state spending system of his predecessors, whether this results enough to save a currency that's somehow never very far from its next crisis, and whether Washington owns what happens next in Latin America's third largest economy. On that score, what lessons for regional rivals Brazil and Colombia? Colombia, where a left-wing leader finds himself cut off from U.S. aid and under sanctions, with Navy ships blowing up alleged drug trafficking vessels off his shores. Today in the France 24 debate, did Trump tip the scales in Argentina? With us from Buenos Aires, Carlina Losada of the Radical Civic Union Party. You're a senator from Santa Fe State. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, how are you?
We're good.
Thank you for calling.
Also from the Argentine capital, Orlando D'Adamo, professor of public opinion and political analysis at the University of Buenos Aires. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Economist Juan Carluccio, professor at the University of Surrey University in the UK, former head of research at Argentina's Trade Secretariat. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, hello.
And Edward Blumenthal, Associate Professor of Latin American Studies at the Université Sorbonne Nouvelle Paris. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here.
On the go, by the way, you can listen to the show wherever podcasts are streamed. Well, the polls got it wrong. Javier Milei, all smiles as he appropriated the term MAGA to suit his followers on Sunday evening when the results came in.
We will not only defend the reforms that have been made, but we will also promote the reforms that are still needed to achieve that future. We want to be a country that grows into the Argentina we should never have stopped being, to make Argentina great again.
Make Argentina great again. Let me begin with you, Juan Carluccio. Yes. Your reaction to this result. Was it Donald Trump that tipped the scales? And is Javier Milei right to borrow his terminology, if you will?
No, I mean, of course, the financial help of Donald Trump helped because there was a lot of financial turbulence in Argentina in the past week for different reasons. One was, there were some political kind of corruption scandals and, there was a lot of volatility. So the fact that Trump stepped in and that helped stabilize the currency in Argentina, you never want to devaluate before an election because, that's politically very, very dangerous, right? So Donald Trump provided this stability, but the fact that Milei won by so much is more deep than that. It's deeper, right? It's the fact that, people are still bearing with him even though he did this very, very strong adjustment, and economic was, there was a lot of economic hardship, so we didn't know exactly how people would react, but, people still, a lot of people still are supporting this program. And
I was just going to say, Milei's party, his La Libertad Avanza party, rebounding from a series of setbacks in previous polls. The LLA still far, by the way, from an overall majority, both in the Chamber of Deputies and in the Senate, where Milei will have to cut deals to pass more reforms. There you see the what it looks like in the lower house. This is the upper house. Most surprising, the result in Buenos Aires, home to 40% of the country's 45 million citizens. And there were local elections last month where Milei's party did poorly. Now, he won in Buenos Aires. How do you explain that?
Well, that is a very, very important thing because the governor of that province is the one that is contended to be, on the sort of the Peronist side in 2 years against Milei. So that the victory there really shows the strength of Milei right now, and how, and it really kind of orders the political debate in the next year. So part of that is also that the opposition is weak and is fragmented, although that also help explaining these results.
Carolina Lozada, is it the strength of Milei right now or the strength of Donald Trump right now? Again, you're going from electoral setbacks to suddenly this surprise win.
I think it's Argentina sending to the world a great message. The message is we don't want Kirchnerism again. We just want a serious country with serious rules. We want a great education, workers that are independent for political favors. I'm sorry. And we don't want any corruption again. We don't want populism again. That's the message from Argentina's people from yesterday. I don't know if Donald Trump, of course, Donald Trump helped, but it's not that. It's Argentina sending a message to the world and to Argentina too.
How do you explain, Orlando D'Adamo? Again, last month, a local election in Buenos Aires, Milei's party loses. This time, the polls get it wrong and he wins. How do you explain it?
Well, the polls are not doing well everywhere around the world lately, so it's very hard to predict with this data. But I think that the polarization strategy effectively worked for the government, and that was something that the government developed after the defeat that they faced in September. On the other hand, the candidates presented by the opposition were, let's say, mostly people associated with previous political failures. So this combo, I think it worked very well for the government.
So you agree then with Carolina Lozada that it's not so much the outside influence of Donald Trump?
Well, we must put this in this way. Do you think that many people knows what's the difference, what is a swap of currencies between countries? What really happened? If you go to the streets and ask the people, would explain to me the swap that of currencies that the US did with Argentina? I don't think so. Maybe a small elite can understand that and can explain that. So I think that the local reasons were much more important than the support of Donald Trump.
Edward Blumenthal?
Yeah, I would agree that local reasons are the most important for explaining this election, although I would disagree in the sense that I think the big winners of the election were abstentionism and resignation.
Abstentionism, it was what, 71% the last time there were midterms. This time it's 68%. That's not a huge difference.
My understanding is it's the largest abstention rate since the return of democracy in 1982. But on top of that, if you look at the combined right-wing support 3 years ago, the far right and the center right had 52%, more or less, in the election, whereas at this time, the far right has eaten the liberal right and is down to 40%. What I see there is abstentionism and resignation. Resignation with the economic situation as it is, and resignation, as it was said before, with regards to the opposition that doesn't present a credible strategy either.
Carolina Lozada, is politics in Argentina veering towards the far right?
I think what I see is hope. People hope we have a great country again. People have expectative in this government. People have expectative in what is going to happen. We don't want any short-term policies that make short reliefs now, but great damage after and for years. So we want policies that last more than a term from the government. We want policies that last a lot of time, and we want to send a message that is, we are going to be serious again. We are going to do what we say we are going to do. We don't want populism. We don't want something that it lasts too short term, and we suffer a lot. People know that the effort that we are doing now, that is a lot of effort. We know that. is going to do it for something, not for nothing like we do it before, because effort is something Argentina is used to make, but for nothing. The people now has hope or maybe expectations about we are going to be great and we are going to be more than other countries, and we are we think we don't want to be Venezuela. You know, Venezuela people is suffering a lot because they don't have a democracy, and Kirchnerism looks a lot of like them. Kirchnerism like Argentina, want Argentina to do that way, you know, and that's not what Argentina people want. We want to be, I told you, we want to be serious. We want to be people. We want to send a very clear message to the world and to our people too. We don't want Kirchnerism again. We don't want populism again. We want policies that last more than a term. We want
Right.
to be great again.
Populism,
Yes.
policies that last more than one term. Just to explain for our viewers, Kirchnerism, she's under house arrest. The former president, after corruption conviction, Christina Kirchner, who, by the way, waved to supporters Sunday from the balcony of her apartment in the capital. And Carolina Lozada, you say she's the same as Venezuela's president. Isn't that a bit of an overstretch?
She's in prison, but in apartment. And a lot of Kirchnerism are in prison because they are corrupt. And the corruption is not what we need. We need clear rules, you know. And a lot of people were there because maybe sometimes they pay for that, for the support. And they make, when they were government, they make a poor education, and they want people to think they are great, but they are not. They are just corrupt people that the only thing they want is to be millionaires, you know.
All right.
And
So
they say they hate millionaires and love poor people. What? Let me tell you, what they want is people to be poor.
okay,
More people to be poor, and that's what
Juan
we don't want
Carluccio,
to.
you just heard Senator Lozada saying that Argentinians are ready to sacrifice if it means long-term change. There's been a lot of sacrifice since Javier Milei became president. There's been thousands of layoffs. There's been streamlining of the welfare system for the disadvantaged. What's the shelf life, if you will, of the patience of citizens in Argentina?
Well, I mean, first I wanted to say that it's very important to understand Milei also in the economic context. He got to the presidency, the inflation rate was 300%. Now it's around 30% projected for this year. So that's a very, very strong fall in inflation. And, I mean, Argentinians, we are used to living with this uncertainty. You don't know how much things are going to cost next month and so on. So I think what mainly explains Milei's popularity is the economics. He has also a very strong, values, societal values, anti-wokeism, and so on. But people didn't vote mostly for that. Some people did, but a lot of people voted for him because he promised to lower down inflation, and it happened. This is his most strongest political capital he has right now. Now, of course. And this idea of sacrifice, yes, I mean, he was able to communicate in a very unusual or unorthodox way the fact that complex economic issues like if the state prints a lot of money, then you have inflation. Then say, okay, if I stop printing money, there's not going to be more inflation. There's going to be pain. There's going to be stagflation. I mean, that was very unusual. The politicians say, I'm going to do the huge cut to welfare before an election and wins and stuff. So I think that's the main political capital he has. Then he's also a figure of his time. He's very outspoken. He sings. That sounds ridiculous to many, but he's able to connect.
So the chainsaw thing works.
I mean, yeah, of course it works, right? But that's not like genius economics. That's very basic economics, right? If you cut down, if you balance the budget, if you reduce the quantity of money, inflation will go down with a recession. right? So the recession was kind of a direct consequence of his policies. Now things are going to be bad, but the second problem he has is the dollar, right? So before, we were in a situation very delicate before he entered election, because there was really this potential financial crisis. Why? Because there was a lot of pesos, because the government used to print pesos to finance the deficit, and very few dollars, right? Now, he can control the quantity of dollars, like he did, the quantity of pesos, the quantity of dollars you have to export, or you have to have people lending to you, or you have people investing. And this is where IMF and Trump came, right? So now the problem for him, I mean, it's not a problem. I think now this election shows sort of, I mean, the real Mileism starts now, and we're going to see what it gives, right? The mere Mileism, in the sense he has, a strong position in parliament, and he will be able to put on the real sort of reforms. And then we're going to see in 2 years, people like it or not. But what you can be sure, and that's why all the markets were so happy, is that there's much more likelihood that these reforms, pro-market reforms, will pass, right? At least it's not sure. And also, the role of Trump is telling you, in the 2 years that Milei will not president, there will not be a major financial crisis. I mean, it's kind of, I'm taking a risk saying that now. But if you have a lender of last resort of the size that Trump, of the United States, Trump said it himself. Argentina is a little country. I mean, it's not very, it's a lot of money for us, but it's 20 billion. I mean, the GDP of the US is 20 trillion, right? So it's kind of a small investment for Trump, but it's motivated also for geopolitical reasons.
Yeah, for political reasons.
Exactly, but the reasons are very powerful for Trump, and that means that, they can intervene very easily. Remember, there was this case in the Eurozone crisis where Mario Draghi was the president of the ECB, where he said, we're going to do whatever it takes to save the euro. And that's Safi. You're having a kind of sort of moment like this with Trump.
Except the whatever it takes is coming not from Buenos Aires, Orlando D'Amato, but from Washington. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree about the impact of the drop of inflation. It's a key reason for the people to vote. You cannot live with almost 300% of inflation. That's insane. So I agree with that. I don't think that resignation is the kind of emotion that motivates the people to vote. It's hope or fear, and both were present in this election. And again, there's a small mistake when it was said before that 52% was what the right and center-right got in an election. It was in a second round election. What is quite different for a midterm election where when the people decided to vote smaller parties because they say, okay, at least I want to have something that represents my ideas in the Congress. But the logic of a second round election is between evil and the good guys. So we cannot compare that. I would compare instead this result with the result that President Macri got in his midterm election. That was, for the center-right, around 40%. And so I think that the main reasons still remain around around local reasons, around the drop of inflation. And there's still some credit given to the president under the hope of better results in the economy in the next 2 years.
Yes. So you said hope and fear. What do you mean by that?
Hope and fear. Fear of the past, hope for the future. You cannot run a campaign, you cannot communicate in politics without saying, okay, we must avoid to repeat these mistakes. We have the chance to do the things in another way. This is, yes, we can for Obama, for example. This is Make America Great Again for Donald Trump. It's used worldwide.
All right, it's a happy Monday, as Juan Carluccio was saying, for investors in Argentina, what with the peso soaring as much as 10% earlier against the US dollar. Here you see what the sort of the roller coaster road, that little downward dip at the very end. Well, that's just from today. That's after the midterm results. In his victory lap after the result, the US president taking a businessman's approach. Let's listen.
I think right now we've made a lot of money based on that election because the bonds have gone up, their whole debt rating has gone up. That election made a lot of money for the United States. Now, we're not in that for money per se, but if you look at the value of the bonds, the debts.
So the U.S. effectively taking a punt, Edward Blumenthal?
Well, yes, I think that is what they're in it for. You know, I'm still
make money.
To make money. I'm still trying to understand what the end game is of the Milei economic strategy. Maurice Obstfeld, a former IMF economics analyst, recently said that Latin American history is littered with foreign exchange stabilization programs that usually end with the carry trade, pesos fleeing the country, and the currency crashing. This has happened over and over again in history. This is not the way inflation problems have been successfully dealt with in the region. And on top of that, Besant said as much when offering up this money. This is a gift to his hedge fund buddies, and the dollars will be going back to the United States in the form of the carry trade, what in Argentina is known as la bicicleta.
So, Edward Blumenthal, here's a question. Argentina seems to always have a currency crisis around the corner. This is, one of the America's most developed economies. We know how vibrant the Argentines are, how their economy is strong. Why is there always a currency crisis?
Well, I would start by saying if you take a longer perspective, it's not just Argentina. No, this has been a Latin American problem throughout the 20th century. But over the past few decades, other countries in the region have more successfully dealt with inflation issues. And again, not through these kind of foreign exchange stabilization, keeping the peso high to bring down inflation, which hasn't brought it down that far. It's still, correct me if I'm wrong, at least 30%, if not higher.
I mean,
But I would say that to answer your question more directly, I think the problem here is, again, political. There is a lack of consensus among Argentine elites and policy members as to what policy solutions are needed to put the country back on track. I'm not sure how that can be done without investments in universities, in public health. Government investments are way down under Milei. That's another way of borrowing against the future. And I'm not sure how you can have a successful, as one of our panelists today said, long-term strategy when you're not investing in the future.
I mean, I think what Oftel was talking about is the fact that the peso was too evaluated. But the idea is that now when Milei has control, I mean, the idea of Milei is to go to a floating, things that, it's very difficult to do in Argentina because every time you let the peso float, there's a huge devaluation, right? So in that sense, I think many economists, agree with
Is there a lack of trust in the system?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the main problem in Argentina is political.
A lot of Argentines have bank accounts abroad. They park their money abroad.
I mean, because we don't have this consensus that inflation is bad overall, because for many years in our history, there was, governments, as Carolina was saying, that were spending money, but at the same time the wages were coming up, so people say inflation maybe is not that bad. Now Milei, I think he put a very interesting conversation, which is the fact that it's simple economics that balanced budget leads to lower inflation. Now, I mean, there's two things. I mean, I fully agree that one of the big problems, if you shut down all public works, if you shut down research and so on, you might be compromising, for sure, your long-term growth. But that's one thing. And then the financial stability is another thing. You can very well be a stable economy that grows not very fast. And I think it will depend. I mean, now in the next 2 years, the big bet of Milei is that, okay, I'm doing these reforms and deregulated money, dollars will go in. And this is also the efforts, in terms of foreign policy, coming, being close to the United States in order to bring investment from there. So this is, now, will that kind of growth benefit all the Argentinians? That is not clear, and that's a potential risk. There's for sure some sectors that in the 2 years that we come will do very well, energy sectors, maybe, you saw Sam Altman, saying we're going to do this great, AI system in Argentina. So some of these sectors, for sure, they will drive under this configuration. Will that be enough that everyone will be living better off? I mean, for sure, people will live with less inflation than before. Let's see. I mean, my dream, is I would like Argentinians to vote because of the way, of a model of a country, and because we always vote for the guy because the other guy made a mess, always. And this is how Milei got to presidency, and this is how Alberto Fernandez, the one before, and the one before, and so on. Maybe we go to my dream is to see, before I die, Argentina voting, because I like a country with state. I don't like a country with state, and not so much, I want some savior. And this is how Milei, from nowhere, came to presidency, right?
But for that, we would have to see someone with a credible plan.
Well, I think the plan of Milei, since Friday wasn't credible. Today is very credible. That's why you see this. It was a surprise. Stocks went up for 50%. It's like, why did I buy? So this plan is more credible for financial stability. For the happiness of people, I don't know.
But is Trump really a credible central banker to keep the Argentine economy afloat? We know what Trump is. He can pull that plug anytime he wants.
The idea, again, the bet is that, money will go in, and it will mostly to some sectors. Again, I think the problem more is going to be the redistribution effects.
There's a Carolina Lozada, there's a problem of a concern over debt bubbles the world over. And if the question is then, in the context of all this, how much does the United States own the problem now with this lifeline given by Donald Trump, should things go bad?
I think we can do an agreement with them, and it can be win-win. It doesn't mean that we are going to I think we can win, and United States can win too. And one thing I wanted to say is the fear in Argentina has a name. And it's what happened in Buenos Aires province 1 month ago. It's Kirchnerism. So we need agreements, and we are working now in a big agreement, a big national agreements. And I'm part of some council, and its name is Council of May. And there are some points that the president signed with the governments from all the province. And we are. It's like a big table when it's me for the senators, and there is someone from diputados, and there is for workers is the secretary for workers. It's someone that is for a big leader for business, big firms, and someone for the executive, and some government for Mendoza province. And we are working in that long terms things that we were talking about.
Yeah, because how much can you cut? How much can you cut public services? When do you stop? How far do chainsaw economics go?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I'm sorry.
How far do Javier Milei's chainsaw economics go? How much can you cut public services? You heard Edward Blumenthal worry about mortgaging the future if you cut public services too much.
But why? Why are we mortgaging the future? I think last government mortgaged the future with bad education, with a wrong education for the people, for the boys and girls, and sharing a lot with countries like Venezuela, Nicaragua. We have the opportunity to be open to the world, to the serious world, to the world that can trust in us, because we are showing people that Argentina has a big agreement, because the people say that yesterday, that we want to be better, and we want to grow our country and our economy and the province's economy. I think the thing we have to do in Argentina now is that big agreements, and everyone to put it before the proper interests.
Orlando D'Adamo, your thoughts on whether or not there can be this sort of national dialogue and consensus that Carolina Lozada was talking about, particularly with a view towards the abstention rate that was brought up earlier by Edward.
Okay, this was something new. We never faced such a rate of abstentionism. We must remember that it is a midterm election. It cannot be compared with a presidential election, and even more with a second round election. I think that the president said at least this is what he said yesterday, that he wants to talk to everybody, which at least can be near his ideas. He says that he's going to talk with the governors of the provinces, and now he's stronger than Friday, because he can say, well, this is the result of the election. This is what I got. We can talk about if it's not that big, but I would say that what about the rest? The opposition was a disaster. It was a disaster for the opposition yesterday. So I think he's going to be in a much more strong position to negotiate. He said he's open to that, and he needs that because he has not enough votes in the Congress to face some situations. His position in the Congress is stronger, but not strong enough in order to rule the country alone. So I think that this may happen, but we'll know in the future.
All right. Last week, when Donald Trump announced again that lifeline for the Argentine currency ahead of the election, he also said the U.S. might import more beef from Argentina, music to the ears of livestock owners in a nation where beef exports are already at their highest in a century.
Whenever an additional buyer comes, it's beneficial for everyone, right? For all the producers, because we have another outlet to send to, like we send to China, like we send to Russia, like we send to different countries. We were sending to the United States already, but only specific cuts. Today, opening up export to there, I think, would be a very good thing.
Juan Carluccio, so not only the lifeline, but perhaps, it hasn't been confirmed yet, opening doors to imports of beef. Mr. Tariffs is letting Argentine beef in.
Well, I mean, of course, the lifeline comes with other interests that the United States might have in Argentina, right? So, Argentina is a country with very rich in natural resources. Of course, the land that produces the beef, but we have other very important natural resources like lithium, like uranium, like there's a huge reserve of gas. And
is that what growth is? Is that in the sort of the natural resources? Or
no, but that's what the United States are interested in, of course, because we are in a position where, this is a geopolitical race for influence and to access to these sort of materials between the United States and China. And this is the stand that, Trump is kind of the game is playing in Argentina. And again, they even made money. It's true because, they bought pesos. The pesos went up, so they made money, right? That's not the main thing. Of course, I mean, I agree with you. There's a lot of discussion of the Democrats saying you're helping your friends from which probably it is true. But you have to see this also in the new world, right, where you have two powers seeking these sort of resources, right? Now, the United States, they import a lot of beef from Brazil as well. So maybe they switch importing from Brazil to Argentina. So I don't think that's a huge deal. I mean, there are things that economically are not that big, but political very big. That can be a very strong political issue in the U.S. But economically, it's not a big deal from the U.S. to import a bit of meat because they already do it,
Edward Blumenthal?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think it presents a political issue in the United States because that's part of Trump's electorate. The farm states, and Argentina competes with the United States in exporting to China, for example. And in fact, now the conflict with China is actually good for South American countries that export to China because it opens up more opportunities. So there's a little bit of tension there. I'm not sure what...
no, but the tension is exactly that we export a lot of soybeans to China, and maybe the United States will try to raise their voice saying, you should stop, because Argentina competes with the United States in some markets, typically in soybean, in some cereal markets.
I'm sorry, can I say something?
Sure, Carolina Lozada.
I want to ask him, who told you that Argentina is not going to make commerce with China because disagreements? Because President Milei didn't say that, and President Trump neither.
I don't think anyone said that.
No.
I didn't say that. I don't know, but
No.
I'm sorry.
No, of course, but
Misunderstand.
you agree that the United States also is interested in things that we have, and this is how it's a transactional approach, right? This is not charity, right? So of course Scott Bessent did say that completely, in a way, like in a kind of sort of brutal way.
The Treasury Secretary in the U.S.
Yes, yeah. And then the Argentinian government said, well, this is not what we're thinking about. But, you cannot escape that that's the reality of the world right now. Right?
Yeah, is it about economics or is it about politics? While the Trump administration last week boosted its Argentine ally in the home stretch of those midterm election campaigning, it also slapped sanctions on Colombia's left-wing president, the United States Treasury Department. It's run by the same Scott Bessent, accusing Gustavo Petro of allowing drug trafficking to flourish. So, Orlando D'Amato, help clear this up for our viewers here. Earlier, we played that clip of Donald Trump saying, hey, we made a lot of money by supporting Javier Milei. Is it about the economics or is it about the politics?
Both?
Yeah.
Probably. I think that we cannot forget that which is the president in South America, in Latin America in general, most close to the political ideas of Donald Trump, which is the only mid-sized country, you said the third economy in Latin America, which is the other country that can be friend of the US in this new war of China against the US. It's Argentina, because if you check, it's very easy. Petro is a president of a left party, so the same in Uruguay, in Brazil, in Chile and Mexico. So I think he's going to keep his allies during at least his presidency, and in the future that's going to be a big question mark, because, for example, if the government changes in the US for a Democrat government, maybe then the things are going to change. But so far, I think everything is on track.
Yeah, after these midterm results, does Javier Milei double down on the leather jackets and the chainsaws, or does he, as was looking again at the electoral math inside the two houses of parliament, does he veer more to the center, or maybe play like Giorgia Meloni, which is pragmatic on issues? Is he going to be more pragmatic or more ideological?
I don't pretend to have any insight into what's going on in Milei's head or in Trump's head, which I think is an important point, going back to what was said before about the sanctions being placed on Colombia. What is in the interest of the U.S.? What is the interest in destabilizing a major ally with the problem with drug trafficking that the United States has been cooperating for decades to trying to manage? This can only provoke more instability, more chaos in a country that's trying to recover from over 4 decades of civil conflict.
Carlene,
the same thing could be asked in general to Trump's Latin American strategy. Is there any strategy there other than throwing away around and looking for short-term interest?
Carolina Lozada, is there a strategy for Donald Trump besides rewarding allies and punishing adversaries?
Well, that's Donald Trump's problem. We are talking here about our problems, and we are talking here about what is best for Argentina. And for Argentina, an agreement with the U.S. I think we can win a lot of money while America is doing great money too. It can be win-win. Why not?
And do you see Javier Milei governing in a different way after these midterm elections?
I hope so. I hope he punctualizes in working with the governments of the province too. And I hope he's going to do big agreements. That's what we need. And that way we are working in the council, the May Council, we are working in that kind of agreements, national agreements that make it long terms.
Juan Carluccio, has Javier Milei changed in the time since he's been president?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I knew him many, many years ago. So now, I mean...
You knew what, as an economics professor?
Yes, but
What was he like back then?
That was well, very outspoken, very funny person, right? I mean, people didn't take it as seriously as he's taking right now. I mean, I don't know. I mean, from one side you can think that this more reasonable approach is coming now for him, and it's, at the same time he was very radical from the beginning, and it's working very well for him. So I don't know exactly what is in his mind. But he picked fight with everyone, basically. A lot of the economists, that work, with him, and still he's doing well. So I'm not a psychologist.
Not a psychologist, but again, to have these difficult reforms, and again, the peso is not out of the woods yet.
No, I mean, you need that, of course. I mean, I completely agree with what was said here. He doesn't have a majority, and he needs other parties, like-minded parties, especially, the pro and, and people, all those parties around that. And so he need that. But yesterday they said that 10% of the economic program was negotiable, not the rest. So I don't know, I mean, it would be reasonable, and I probably, the fact that Trump ambassador was there was a help to make him understand that he has to be more political in a way, which is what you are saying now. Everyone is saying now, it's unpredictable. So,
Orlando D'Adamo, have you been able to read Javier Milei better since he's become president, or is he as unpredictable as Juan was saying?
Well, I am a psychologist. This is my first degree, so I should be able to answer your question, but I am not sure about that. It's very difficult. It's a new style of leadership. I would say that the president, while maintaining his style of communication, he has greatly moderate his political discourse after the defeat in the local elections in September. There was a very nice research that a major newspaper did in Argentina this weekend, and they checked all the words he has been using until September, and the ones he has elected to use between September and now, and we can see a change. I think that his style of leadership is not going to change mainly. Why? Because most of his followers are young people, as it happens around the world with this kind of political approach. I mean, if you check Spain, Vox has young people behind, supporters. It seems that to be anti-establishment nowadays, it's more around right ideas than left ideas, as it happens, let's say, in the 80s, 90s, on the beginning of this century. So I don't think it's going to change mainly his approach.
A major difference, priming the pump there for another conversation. I want to thank you, Orlando D'Adamo, for being with us from Buenos Aires. I want to thank Carolina Lozada also for being with us from the Argentine capital. Juan Carluccio, Edward Blumenthal, thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.
Thank you. Thank you.